So I want to talk about the SAVE Act, or the Republican poll tax, basically, is what I guess you could call it. And the reason being because I have just a little bit of experience with dealing with making sure your ID is acceptable. When we moved from Colton, Washington to Pierce, Idaho, some years ago, I was at the stage in my vision where I didn't feel safe to drive, so I didn't see any reason to get my driver's license renewed, but it still worked as, identification for going places. And so I didn't bother with that. I didn't switch it over. And when it got to the point where it was getting to almost expire and I knew I wanted to be able to vote and still have ID, we started working on considering that. So we drove well, it was about a 50-mile round trip between Pierce and Orofino to go in and see what was required to get my driver's license. And first thing I was told was I needed my birth certificate, a copy of my birth certificate. Well, that was in Colfax, Washington. Because of time constraints, didn't want to wait for the mail. We drove to Colfax to get a copy of my birth certificate. And we paid the fee. That was about a 180-mile round trip. Then we made another trip to Orofino to be told, well, you need to show the progression of your name changes. I've been married 3 times. Well, the next trip was about a 180-mile round trip to Grangeville and back. I think the fee there was about $2. It wasn't very much, but it was a trip. And then another trip from Pierce to Orofino. And so we had to do this, and I'm not including gas because we could have done this by mail, but we did have fees for the birth certificate and the marriage licenses and all that to show the progression. And with this SAVE Act, they talk about having a real ID. Real ID. I don't have a real ID. Meaning another fee. Now, luckily, I already have copies of my birth certificate and all that. So going in and getting a real ID for me won't be too much of a hassle, because like I said, I have the copies already. I've had to go through this rigmarole, which, by the way, I've had to go through this rigmarole more than once, but, when you've moved multiple times, you end up having to get papers again. However, I have those copies. I can go get a real ID, or I can go and pay for a had brain freeze. I can go pay for a passport. Or I could go in and pay for having my name legally changed back to my maiden name so that it matches my birth certificate. But then if I did that and I take my birth certificate in to vote and my name is changed back to my legal name, then it doesn't match my ID name on my picture ID, so I suppose I would have to have that changed too. See, this is what Republicans are up to, and it's a way to disenfranchise voters, and they're certainly doing a good job of it because there's going to be a lot of confusion for this, and the confusion isn't all of it because, yes, there are fees involved. It is a poll tax, and while I know because I see the comments from maggots and some non-maggots that talk about, well, just show your ID, no big deal. Well, everybody's got to have an ID. Yeah, not everybody can afford this crap. And I don't. Okay, fine. If you want this, if the real ID or the passport, then those things should be free. Now, I personally don't want to have to go in and because I don't like leaving my home. agoraphobia, anxiety disorder, I like to stay home. I don't want to leave my home. I don't want to have to go in and do the hassle of getting a passport or a real ID. But if you're going to force me into that, then make it free. Because if you're going to insist that we have to have this piece of ID to vote, then we've already proven we're American citizens, by damn. Make it free. I don't think that's too much to ask. And if you can't make it free, then don't demand it, because it's rather insulting. Um, the voter fraud in this country has been mostly perpetrated by Republicans. So you can bet, since generally they accuse others of what they are guilty of, they've got some sneaky, stinky plan with this too.